would ever think such a state-of-the-art, high-tech facility would be hiding in the rolling hills of the Wisconsin dairy country? Through the metropolis of Iola, population 667, turn right at the mailbox, left at the cow, and you're there. The S&S Factory Farm, where they grow some of the most cutting-edge speed technology in the world. S&S stands for Speed and Speed. Not really. It stands for Smith & Smith, Mr. and Mrs., who started building parts to race with over 50 years ago. George had a simple philosophy: make all motorcycles go faster. Boy, did he. He made them go very fast. George set the first land speed record in 1954, topping 152 miles an hour. Speed is what they produce with technology designed to make history and rewrite record books. S&S loves a good challenge. The 145 Tribute, and last year it was the 124 VFI Challenge. A huge success with some crazy bad machines in the end. This year, after much deliberation and a couple of fistfights, it was decided it's going to be retro with a Shovelhead engine. Welcome to the Old School Shovel Tour. 5 of the baddest builders on the scene each receive a brand spanking new 93-inch Shovelhead engine and the challenge to build the coolest thing they can think of. It's a diverse group of masters. Who knows how radical they'll get? Of course, what better way to test their creations than head-to-head in Research and Development Department? Paul Cox racing Chica. How cool is that? Big Mike Rouse of Big Mike Choppers from Bend, Oregon. Mike's manufacturing crew turns out 6 to 7 bikes a day. It was a real treat to get to design a one-off. If he wasn't a bike builder, Mike would be a TV host. He's funny, does great wheelies, and builds a snazzy bike really fast. The James Dean of Japan. Some say Chica's bikes are like trips to other worlds. Only 8 to 10 lucky Joes a year get to ride their own tailor-made Chica Custom. A man of few words and many motorcycles. Kevin Alsop was old school when old school was new school. Big Bear Choppers out of Big Bear, California. He designed some sick one-offs and then designs them as kits. It's an idea that's really caught on. Kano Sasaki and Paul Cox out of Brooklyn carry on the Indian Larry legacy, completing the bike that Larry had committed to build shortly before his tragic death. Blending Larry's vision and their own twisted finesse cooked up an awesome machine. Jesse Rook of Rook Customs out of Huntington Beach, California is the visionary hipster that's made his presence felt in a big way. He first made noise with an innovative Schwinn-type design that caught everyone's eye. He builds cool bikes and mosquitoes find him quite tasty.
The rules for the Old School Shovel Tour are pretty simple. First, you had to start out with an unmodified 93 cubic inch S&S Shovelhead style engine. You had to build the bike for under $20,000, not including paint, and it had to be a Kickstarter, because without a Kickstarter, it can't be old school. Finally, you had to take a 120-mile shakedown ride from our customer support center in La Crosse, Wisconsin, to the track in Earlville, Iowa. Now, one of the last points that was not an official rule, but was certainly one of the most exciting events during the Old School Shovel Tour, was the head-to-head drag racing that took place between the builders at the quarter-mile drag strip in Earlville, Iowa. It was a lot of fun to watch.
This episode, we're in Big Bear, California, home of Big Bear Choppers and the outspoken Australian Kevin Alsop. Kevin really lived old school, so he has some definite ideas about style and design from his decades of riding motorcycles. It was a freezing cold day in the mountains that we hooked up with Kevin outside of his manufacturing plant in Big Bear, California.
You know, at the time, I was still in an outlaw club when I started Big Bear Choppers. So outlaw motorcycle clubs tend to name themselves, or chapters of outlaw motorcycle clubs, name their chapters after the area that they actually are in. So that's what when it came to naming the shop, I said, hey, that's easy. I want to name it like I would a chapter, and that is to name it after where I live, you know, so I was Big Bear, and that's where we are. Because often so many people call up and say, hey, where are you guys located? Big Bear. And bottom line is this: we're just going to build a bike that is of old school, remnants. Just a basic frame, rigid, wishbone. Harley Davidson did wishbone frames in the 1940s for clearance for exhaust systems and stuff like that. Very simple, very basic. What guys were doing in the 70s and 80s, taking these older frames and chopping them up and turning them into choppers. That's the bottom line, and we're going to build a bike from that period, meaning that the fabrication work is not extravagant, doesn't have all these trinkets hanging on it. We're going to do a basic chopper from the 70s, and that is what an outlaw would have ridden. That is spring and front end, sissy bar, peanut tank, suicide shift. Have a nice day.
Kevin's shop turns out a staggering 1,200 bikes a year, so he's not always immediately thought of as a custom builder. Happy for the opportunity to do a one-off for S&S, to get to show those guys that he is absolutely for real, Kevin pulls out his take on old school.
And this is the frame that I want to use for this S&S bike. It's an old school frame, meaning, in the respects that it's rigid. S&S kind of inspired me to, old school stuff is like, man, that's what Clint works at my other shop in the bike building department. Clint's in charge of all the bike building. Him and I worked together 15 years ago at Beck's Chopper Design. And we were working on this old school stuff that they call old school now. Back then it was new school to me. But what's funny is, S&S gave me the idea that we should just go back and do this, as a affordable bike, as an old school bike. And Clint and I just sort of laugh about it because, like, okay, we've got to build the same crap we were 15 years ago. Well, it's got a stock neck rake. And I'm actually thinking I might just rake this out a little bit more, cut the tubes down here and extend give this a little bit of an upstretch. I might do that now that I've built this stock frame. But that won't be hard to do. I'll just build it actually I'll just build another frame. I'll just raise everything, unbolt this and raise it up. This is a prototype frame jig that we can do whatever we want. I can stretch anything where I want it. So I can basically move it almost like plasticine,
The Shovelhead shows up and they can't wait to get at it. Like a pirate finding treasure, Kevin rips open the box. It's an engine he knows well, and he's excited to see what improvements S&S has made.
They put Evolution-style hydraulics inside the motor, so it'll run extremely quiet, pushrod noise. And it's also the way they did the cam in it. It's very easy to kick over. That's what I like about this motor. It's so easy to kick over, and it starts just like that. It's cool.
It takes a blank of this nature, you can see, which has been deep draw pressed on cold draw material. From here, we put them in this machine, and we cut them out to look like this. We have all the fuel petcocks. We have the fuel tank mount to the frame. From here, they'll go next door, and they get welded together and built as a tank itself. The last item I showed you over there, which was a weld-in bung for the top fuel tank here that we're making on the CNCs right this minute.
So these rocker boxes are all billet aluminum now, whereas the rocker boxes that Harley used to make, during the 60s and the 70s, and even the 80s actually, the Shovelhead rocker boxes were cast. And they were notorious for leaking. They were just a big pain in the butt. Now, S&S is what they've done, is they've made these rocker boxes, like I said, out of billet aluminum. They're machined to precision, and they got a different sealing method, and they're right on the money. making the whole deal here work real good. I try to be honest with you, I don't do that much riding anymore, but I did enough of it in the day, you know, flying a patch. But now I really don't get to ride that much, but by the same token, this year we're going to Sturgis with the truck and a company, and I'm actually planning to ride all the way there from here and I'm going to invite as many customers that want to come along, consumers of ours, as well as anybody else that wants to ride along, I don't care. I'm just going to do a road trip, you know, but you know what, it's interesting how everybody talks about the yuppies and this guy and that guy, oh, you know, they should ride their bike and they should be down, you know what I'm saying, brother? Well, you know what, I think that's a bunch of crap, because if that makes them feel better about themselves to knock somebody else, then that's all fine and dandy. Because, hey, I flew a patch, I've ridden in snow, I've ridden in rain, I've ridden in, you know, 120-degree heat in Arizona. Hey, you know what? That doesn't make me any better than anybody. It just means I was stupid enough to get out there and do it.
Right. How many years have you been riding?
Oh, shit, 15 years at least, 20 years, right? So, you know, it doesn't really mean anything to me when somebody says, oh yeah, those yuppies sons of a bitch, a trailer on their bike. Hey, I think they're smart, because I trailer I'd be 120-degree heat, dude. I'd rather be sitting in that car
I know exactly
with the air conditioner on than some punk that's been riding for a year telling me that I'm a pussy because I ain't riding a bike.
Right.
You.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
No, you're right.
I'll stab you right in the fucking neck. I'll show you some hardcore.
How do you really feel, Kevin? The shovel slides into the frame and gets locked down. Kevin gives a lesson on why there is a wishbone frame.
You know, another good reason why back in the 40s Harley Davidson built a wishbone frame, the actual reason they didn't build a wishbone frame because it looked cool. They built a wishbone frame because of this reason here I'll show you. On a panhead motor and a shovelhead motor, the pipe comes right here out of the head. If you had tubes here right coming down here, they'd be in the way. So it just made it easy to do this. And then they eventually made the frames a little bit wider where the tubes were straight, but they came in on more of an angle so it would miss the pipe. Cool, all right. Well, now we know the motor fits. We're going to throw a tranny in it. I'm going to go ahead and build a tank and some fenders for it. The Springer front end is on its way, being built upstairs. So we'll go ahead and finish the Springer. We'll finish building the Springer, build the fuel tank, build the fenders. We're on our way, and then we'll get this thing going.
The shop cranks into high gear.
So that's the thing. When it comes to building old school, like this S&S bike, what I thought of is, okay, what I need to do is just build a bike very similar to what we used to build in the 70s. And what I need to do is build it as cheap as possible, because old school meant like Outlaws or whatever, we have no money, or had no money then. So, okay, my panhead I built for like 5,000 bucks. Today that bike would cost 30 grand, you know? Oh yeah, I mean, dude, I got the gas tank out of the garbage can. I mean, I got the rear wheel, which was an all 15-inch. See,
That's what made you really think about the old school like that.
right, back in the day, guys, to get wide tyres, we were taking Volkswagen tyres and lacing up a rim, a 15-inch rim, to a Star Hub, an original Star Hub, which would be a mechanical brake or juice, but was an old Star Hub, which was put on the wheels of Harleys back in the 40s. And yeah, that was, I found the rim in the trash can, and it was all rusted up, and man, that's just how I had to do it, because I didn't have any freaking money, you know? Right. And so that's where that whole thing came from. When you don't have money, you have to think of ways of making something look cool.
Make it work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So by doing that, building a custom and then turning it into a kit, hey, it was a smoking idea, and it's caught on, and now it's kicking butt, you know. And that's all we do now. I think of a great design it, build it as a one-off, test it, check it out, see what everybody thinks about it. All my employees and other people will ask, well, you know, what do you think of this? Is it cool? Do you think, you know? And once it gets the green light, man, we go into production with it, start marketing it, and that's it. We test everything and away we go. Well, we fabricate everything, you know. Well, as far as frame, tanks, fenders, gas tanks, handlebars, air cleaner covers. The reason that I do the frame, tanks, and fenders is because the difference between, say, one of my motorcycles or a Harley Davidson or a Kawasaki or whatever is the frame, tanks, and fenders is what makes a motorcycle, gives its persona, gives it its look, gives it its everything. Is the frame, tanks, and fenders is everything in the design of the motorcycle. Hey, they all have two wheels, they all have an engine, they're all V-twins, whatever. They all look the same if you took the frame, tanks, and fenders away. They'd all look exactly the same. A little bit different in the wheel design or the handlebars or whatever, but the bottom line is this: frame, tanks, fenders. So when S&S, I mean, I hold S&S in a very high place, in my opinion, of a company that builds quality and so on and so on. And for them to ask me to build a bike for them, man, that was very exciting for me. You know, it really was. And of course, S&S definitely goes with choppers and old school, because that's what the guys were doing, you know, taking choppers, or taking stock Harley Davidsons, chopping them up and doing their thing to them. And when it comes to doing engine modifications and stuff like that, they're using S&S products. So what better engine to have in a chopper than an S&S?
Alsop unveils his answer to the people that think he can't build a custom.
Well, the reason I built the punk ass bitch, the reason I built that bike is because even though I'm doing production here, I mean, I design a one-off bike and then I put it in production. You know, there's people in my industry that are, you know, in my industry. There are other shops and whatnot, and people that are involved that are basically competitors. We're saying, well, you know, Big Bear Choppers, they don't build custom bikes, or they don't know how to, which is just quite the opposite. We actually build a custom bike and then put it in production, which is twice as hard. So what I did is decided to build a bike and call it the Punk Ass Bitch in name of these people that were running around telling their story. I wanted to show them that, yeah, we can build a one-off and we can make it as crazy and extreme as we want. And I named it after them, Punk Ass Bitches. You know, everybody in this industry says they're outlaw and all this kind of garbage, but they all watch their P's and Q's. It ain't about that. I built a bike called the Punk Ass Bitch for the punk ass bitches that were running their mouths. Yeah. So I'm not going to be politically correct. In fact, that's the whole idea, or the image, or the people that are behind this image, that created this image, motorcycle clubs, famous motorcycle clubs. That was the whole thing, man, was not to be politically correct or not take any crap from anybody. Go right to the people and say, this is what it is, this is what's going to happen, end of story. That's just fun stuff, isn't it? Doing burnouts. Oh, if it wasn't so damn cold.
It's still hard to believe Indian Larry is gone, but without question, he left behind an unbelievable legacy. Not only in the bikes and images he left us, but the crew of friends who continue to march at their Brooklyn studio. Paul, Kano, and John picked up the S&S challenge Larry had accepted just after his last year in Sturgis. Somehow they've managed to gel together as a team and rock on producing their own psychotically beautiful designs. Let's see what these wizards have in store for S&S.